culture seems to exalt these guys who are enormously, in my experience, self-centered, self-driven, and if anything, just foolishly naive about politics to the extent that they care at all. And now all over the world of meditation and Buddhism and mindfulness, and we had a Google executive
Yeah.
telling a monk, if you were born too soon, if you'd been born in my era, you would work for Google. So we have this, we have this extraordinary stuff going on, and nobody's really talking about the fact that these guys are the kind of they're J. Pierpont Morgan and flip flops basically, so I'm really glad you're on it, and glad especially that you've been writing about the I can't call it price fixing, but the illegal.
Wage fixing. It's really wage fixing cartel is
Uh-huh.
what it
Well,
is,
tell us
right? I
about it
mean,
a little bit. Give
so
us a minute on that.
yeah, really quickly. So in the mid 2000s, 2005 or so, the big heavy part of this cartel was arranged between Steve Jobs of Apple and Eric Schmidt and Sergey Brin of Google, and then a few others, the head of Intuit, the head of Intel eventually, in which what was happening in 2005 is that the wages for tech engineers and programmers and so on were starting to soar through the roof and obviously cutting into revenues, into profits, which then, hurts shareholders and hurts these guys, these billionaires. So they devised a secret and illegal series of agreements with each other not to recruit each other's employees, not to cold call recruit, which actually cold calling in Silicon Valley at least is considered by the companies and by recruiters the best way to get the best talent.
Right, because their argument is the best talent is not looking for work.
Exactly. And but by agreeing not to cold call or recruit each other's employees, what you start to do is you, and this is again classic sort of robber baron stuff. You take out information, you take out competition from the labor market. I mean, for lack of a better word, I'm going to use their own terminology. So that means workers don't even know really what they're worth. They don't even know that they're not being recruited because their CEOs way above them made this secret agreement. They don't even know their worth because they're not being called. And
so wait a minute, hold on. So you're saying that these guys who preach the gospel of libertarianism, cybernetic libertarianism, are actually fixing markets? That's not a very libertarian thing to do, is it?
No, exactly. And these agreements, what I've found in some of my updates by pouring through the court dockets, is that these agreements extended far beyond Silicon Valley. And this is kind of why I called it the Tectopus, because the tentacles of this thing, it began in Silicon Valley, these series of non-recruitment agreements, which violates the Sherman Antitrust Act, violates the Clayton Antitrust Act. These agreements spread across industries and across oceans. So you had Comcast, Clear Channel, Microsoft, Dell, the public relations giant in London, WPP, which has 122,000 employees. So you had, you're talking now potentially hundreds and hundreds of thousands of employees. And this is only what we know. And I'm finding more and more companies were involved in this.